Alright, today we are going to check out Raspberry Mash. This was a game that I just randomly found on the eShop. I did not get a key. I paid for this myself. So far, I have not regretted it. It's pretty fun. It's a lot like Enter the Gungeon at first glance, but there are some pretty major differences, which I think that actually make it better than Gungeon. I did not like Gungeon much when that game came out. I gave it a chance, but there are a number of things I didn't like about it. The first was that you're always stuck with crappy weapons for really long periods of time, and the game was just too long. Uh, the multiple other action roguelikes I played, I don't like long roguelikes with long runs because I get too frustrated. I know I'm not the only one. Some people do like longer roguelikes, but I can generally put a lot of time into shorter ones. The longer they are, the less likely I am to play. So, let's get into it. I've been playing this quite a bit off camera at my kitty sitting job, and I managed to get one clear. Apparently, there's a true ending. There's like no information for this game on the internet at all, so a little bit harder to make an overview for than some of the other stuff I've played in the past. If you want to see the controller layout, I'll show that in a second. Pixel art's pretty clean. So you've got a dodge roll, pretty standard stuff. You have your gun, twin stick aiming. You have bombs, and you have potions. You also have a reload. So these are all the items in the game. When you get the items on the sides that are adjacent to the gold ones, you actually do get new items unlocked. So as you can see, I've been playing this for several hours. I've got a decent chunk of the items unlocked. Now, what sets this game apart from Gungeon, besides the better pacing, is the fact that you have a melee attack. There are a number of ways that a melee weapon can differ. Everything from the attack animation to how many combos it can do. The problem with the melee in this game is that you can't dodge cancel, so I feel like the game needs some balancing work, just because you can't really use slow weapons. Slow weapons are somewhat viable towards the beginning of the game, when the enemies are slower, but when you start getting the enemies with the armor, and a lot of ranged enemies and stuff, it's just not viable to use them. I'm not sure why it's designed that way. I guess they didn't want it to be like just a pure hack and slash type game. They wanted you to use the gun, but the thing that doesn't make sense is that ammo is very scarce in this game. It is not like Gungeon, where you can have a lot of different guns with different ammo and stuff, from what I understand. I'm not really an expert on Gungeon, but from what I understand, that's how that game works. Here, you definitely need to use melee whenever possible, because you want to generally preserve your ammo for bosses. All the bosses are actually pretty well designed. They generally have a lot of patterns and attacks that leave them open for you to get at least one combo off, but the fact that you can't dodge cancel really prevents the melee combat from being as good as it should be. So when you start the run, you get access to a couple items here. So this is a magic tier item. This is like better than a normal item, but as you can see, it also has random affixes on it. I believe the affixes are random. So you get a ranged weapon, and then you get a passive. So this is what I just equipped. This is a relatively decent weapon because it does move you quite a bit forward, so weapons that have dashing in their attack strings are generally more viable to use than ones that keep you stationary, because that means even if you can't dodge cancel, you can use the forward momentum and distance from the attack to get out of range of something. Lots of cool synergies with the items too, like if you have a freeze weapon, then that can make it more viable to use melee as well. There definitely are some bosses where you're going to want to have a lot of ammo. This game's kind of set up like other games, where the bosses will spawn mooks so that you can still fight them with ranged ammo, even though you don't have you wouldn't have ammo normally, because they will drop ammo. Sorry, that's kind of a bit of a run-on sentence. So generally enemies will stagger when you hit them. The only enemies that don't stagger are bosses. Sometimes there will be little altars, like the altar that was here, and they will give the enemies certain buffs. They'll increase their attack or defense, or they'll give them armor. So if they give them armor, then you generally want to make sure that you take out the altar first. So there's alternate paths. That's actually the harder path. I believe that's the path I need to go on to get the true ending. But we're just gonna do the regular boss today, because I need to show the persistent elements, and I can't do that without beating a boss. As you can see, the little blue things that come out are basically your persistent currency. If you've ever played Dead Cells, it works pretty much the same way, in that you can't use them until you beat a boss and you get to an NPC. So in this game, you can get full heals at any time, but the price of them increases dramatically every time you get one. So you want to try to get as far as you can without using these. That way, when you get towards the end of a run, and I think runs are about 30 to 35 minutes long on the normal route, it definitely doesn't overstay its welcome like Gungeon. So if you didn't like Gungeon because of the pacing and how long the runs were, I definitely would recommend this game. You can dodge cancel out of using the gun, so you do have that option, like charging up the laser. See, I can go like that. So shooting the gun is pretty responsive. The melee isn't. I feel like they were trying to make sure that you can't just button mash through the bosses and stuff, but I definitely have had a couple runs that I've lost simply because I got a slow weapon and I couldn't cancel out of the attacks. So basically rendered me useless on some of the faster and more dangerous enemies towards the end. So you have a pretty low, hard ammo cap in this game, so you always want to reload before you pick up ammo. Even if your magazine's only missing a couple bullets, you want to pick it up. You cannot cancel from melee to gun either. Main problem with this game is the stiffness. It's not much of a problem at this point in the game, but as you get farther, it definitely does feel a little bit artificial. Like if you pick a slow weapon that doesn't have any forward movement, then you're pretty much dead. And I don't really think that's fair, honestly. You know, making a choice in a roguelike is always going to be something that happens, but it shouldn't be to the point where if you pick an item, you know, a slow weapon, that you just die. You know, sure, the game should be harder, but it shouldn't just be like it is in this game, where anything less than fast that doesn't let you clear the distance of the enemies is functionally useless. So in this situation, getting the potion was better than getting the heal, because I've grinded enough to get 3 potions. This can be a little wonky too. Sometimes the teleporter won't go all the way up to the boss. Levels are pretty small and condensed. Even if you full clear everything, the runs don't overstay their welcome, which is really nice. So as you'll see on this boss, the bosses are pretty well designed. They actually have pretty clear-cut attack patterns where they'll let you get in melee. Like, he's gonna do this gun kata thing here. Roll through that. Get a full combo off. Melee isn't as risky as you'd think, but due to the inability to cancel, you definitely have to be careful when you do it. And as you fight the bosses more, you start to understand, you know, how many melee hits you can get away with. This is a pretty crappy build, so this is taking quite a bit. He's gonna do his gun kata now. Alright, he's done. Nice. So, very much like Dead Cells, even if you get crappy starts and builds like this, you can still make progress. As long as you're beating bosses, you're still going to be getting some progress. But at the point I'm at, I pretty much need to finish a whole run to really get anything useful. So let's see how these compare. I've actually had this weapon before. See, like, this weapon is decent because it moves you a little bit farther. There's also a little bit of a strategy to the melee as well. Like, this attack at the end is laggy, but if you do this, as soon as she twirls the spear around, you're actually free to dash cancel. Alright, so let's keep going. I'm actually not going to finish this run. It's better off just resetting. It's a pretty crappy start, but here is the persistent mechanic. You talk to this guy, he even looks like the collector from Dead Cells. There's quite a few things you can upgrade in here. Some of the biggest ones are getting new weapons. I'm trying to unlock more guns because I have pretty crappy guns overall right now. There's other things like you can increase your artifacts. Artifacts are your passive weapons. Your smart bombs, you can increase a lot of properties about the bombs as well. Giving yourself extra gold is pretty nice because it will allow you to effectively purchase one of the potions for free at the beginning. So if you have a crappy start like this, you can still get out of level 1 or level 2 with pretty decent stuff overall. Increased chance of high rarity items is very important because a lot of them have unique properties. They also have more affixes on them as well, so you generally want those too. And then the weapons are actually really good too. It goes normal, magic, rare, and then legendary. Those are the rarity tiers. Very much like Dead Cells, when you collect something, when you want to put your souls into something, it will stay past runs. So, getting something like this, you could get this in one run. There is one flaw though. If you go on the normal mode path, there actually is this NPC is not there at the end. When I finished my first run, I had like 500 souls, and I couldn't put them into anything. I know the developers are Japanese. There's like no information on this game on the internet at all, so I'm kind of going off what I found myself, but it's definitely a flaw. It's mostly the lack of dodge canceling and some of the crappy items. The slow melee weapons in particular feel pretty awful. The charged lasers are kind of decent, but they're not that great either. I'm not exactly sure what the combo meter does. This game is very, kind of do and don't tell. I guess would be a word for it. Figure out things for yourself. It's nice how, despite the inability to dodge cancel, the enemies are pretty well designed. They actually do give you pretty good tells for the things they do. Bosses especially. A lot of the bosses have pretty clear tells on when they're going to attack. So it's got that going for it, but I feel the inability to cancel directly impacts the balance, or lack thereof. You generally do not want to take a slow weapon towards the end of the game, because it will actively get you killed. There's going to be times on bosses where you're going to be low on ammo, and you'll need to go in for melee to either kill the mooks, or just do damage in general. And if you have a slow weapon, pretty high chance you're going to take damage, and you can't really tank damage in this game. There are some things that help and give you defense and extra health and stuff, but generally you don't want to get hit at all in this game. Okay, that's a pretty crappy item. Alright, what's in the shop? See, this hammer is one of the worst things you can take. Even at this point in the game, I don't think taking that would be very wise. I don't know what it is about video games. I generally like playing as fast, responsive characters, but in a lot of games like this, the slow weapons are, like, legit terrible. There's, like, no reason to use them. Unless you hate yourself or you're going for, like, a self-imposed challenge. Generally want to avoid hammers. There might be a legendary tier 1 that's good, but I don't have them unlocked yet. I haven't really seen a reason to put resources into them. Mostly getting crappy drops right now. Okay, here's one of those altars. Alright, now the buff is cleared. Running a little bit low on ammo, so I want to make sure that I conserve as much as I can. The next boss is pretty melee friendly, but it goes a lot faster if you can shoot him as well. Okay, there's an attack buff in here, so we'll go this way. There we go. Okay, so there's a food drop back there, so let's go grab that. What's nice is that it shows you what areas of the level actually have items in them, so it makes it easy to just teleport back, make sure you grab all the ammo and stuff. Like, there's actually not a whole lot on the floor right now. Alright, let's see if I can do this with this crappy build. Might be a little tight. I don't really have a particularly fast weapon right now. See, like, he's gonna do this big attack here. You can get a combo in. Music's really nice in this game, too. He's gonna go to his second phase soon. Alright, I have no ammo left, so gotta play this melee now. Oh. This boss does not spawn mooks, so you might want to save your ammo for the end. Pretty terrible start. Like I said, it's nice that this game has very similar progression to Dead Cells, so even if you're getting a bunch of junk, and getting crappy items and stuff like this, it's still like worth continuing as long as you can. Take no damage for 4 seconds after using potions. That's pretty good. Ah, and here's a rare weapon. So, you know, that attack is nice on paper, but you can't cancel out of it. So, you really have to be careful using something like that. If it's a boss like that, where he has a very clear and obvious point to attack him, then it's useful, but normally you would want to dodge cancel out of that. Alright, so let's go ahead and end this overview. Let's unlock some items. This build's finally starting to go places, but I don't have confidence in it clearing. And I'm not even really trying to clear right now. It seems like I've nothing really unlocked from just clearing the game. It's mostly just getting a couple extra items. Alright, so I've got some decent ranged weapons now. It's about on par with melee. Let's try grabbing this. And then I think I'll grab... Not sure what the next best thing to put into would be. Probably high rarity items. The magic skill values are basically the affixes. I believe they are random, so definitely makes this game pretty interesting. Like right now, I've got... This has damage reduction on melee attacks, so even if you do get hit, you'll still have a little bit of damage reduction. It also has HP up as well. Crits are really nice in this game, too. You can actually see all your persistent bonuses here, so I've got a lot of... got 3 potions that heal 70% of HP. Got some bombs and some buffs. They got the sprint. The sprint can be used out of combat, which is nice, and then just a bunch of other passives. Yeah, that's going to go ahead and do it. I thought that's a little decent overview. That's about half of the game. There's like 5 levels, but on this path you actually don't get much. While you're on your first run, you will unlock a lot of abilities that allow you to go to alternate paths. Sometimes they will they'll just be item rooms, and other times they'll be to harder versions of the bosses. So what I believe you need to do is you need to get to the harder path and beat it all the way to get the true ending. So there's probably going to be at least one more level and a true boss. I wish I had a more concise and detailed overview, but this is kind of what you deal with when you're a niche game content creator. Sometimes there's no information other than literally what you're making yourself. So I'll update this as I get farther. I think the best thing to do at this point would be to unlock some better weapons, because a lot of the melee weapons have some really busted attacks that they can do. So I'm probably going to work on getting the fists and then maybe the spear as well. The fist, the spear, and the sword. I probably won't even bother with the hammer at this point. It seems like a waste. It's just would dilute the drop pool. Thanks for watching. The game is $17 on the eShop. It will be available on Steam on the 25th. I'm going to attempt to get a review key so I can play at a slightly better frame rate. It stays pretty solid. I don't really think this game needs a really responsive frame rate. It's not a very responsive game to begin with. I definitely think that's something that they should patch. I feel like they were trying to make it so you don't just turn it into a dodge fest, but a lot of the weapons have a lot of recovery on their attacks, and there just isn't really a good time to use them at points, and sometimes you can run out of ammo and your only option is melee. That's what sets us apart from Gungeon, is you're not just standing back and shooting. You actually do have to balance your ammo. Generally, you have very little ammo at all times, so I'm going to try to talk to them on Twitter and ask if maybe there's an item that does it, or there's like a passive ability you get or something. That would make this game a lot better. It definitely does feel like sometimes if you don't get a good melee weapon, the game just takes a lot longer and it's a lot more frustrating. Thanks for watching, and I'll have more content in the near future for this game.